Donald Trump was back on Capitol Hill yesterday for the first time since the January 6, 2021 insurrection, and Republicans gave him a hero's welcome. The presumptive 2024 GOP nominee briefly addressed the press after gathering with House and Senate Republicans in two separate meetings, touting his great relationships with everyone present.
This is an outstanding group of people. I'm with them 1,000%. They're with me 1,000%. We agree just about on everything, and if there isn't, we work it out.
He said very complimentary things about all of us. We had sustained applause. He said, I'm doing a very good job. I mean, we're grateful for that.
He saw me. I was sitting back a little ways. He saw me in there, and he was like, hello, Marjorie. He's always so sweet and recognizes me.
He's electric. He's got an incredible fastball. And I think that was just exciting after all he'd been through, how strong this man is. I've never seen someone be able to take all the heat that he's taken and come in there ready to lead.
He was the team captain, and we were glad he was leading us. It was the single best meeting I've ever seen between the United States Republican senators and President Trump.
You know, and Willie, just in case you're keeping score at home, they were saying this about a man convicted of 34 felonies, found liable for sexual assault against a woman, was found to be guilty by definition, in definitional purposes, by a judge in New York of raping that woman. He said, you can call it what you want to call it, but everybody else outside this courtroom calls it rape. When he talked about definitions of the U.S. Army or definitions of, again, medical organizations. And this is who the Republicans are throwing their arms around with reckless abandonment. And again, for political purposes, let me say again, because I'm so nice, and I like to warn people before they stick their hand on the stove for the 8th time, this is also the man that led Republicans' defeats in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and it'll happen again in 2024. And one of those people talking, Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, the guy who said in 2016 and got it right before that losing streak, he said, if we nominate Trump, we will be destroyed as a party and we will deserve it. So here we go. It's about to be an 8-year losing streak.
I mean, you could go to a Taylor Swift concert this summer and see less giddiness about her from teenage girls than we saw from Republicans on Capitol Hill about Donald Trump right there. It's truly staggering. These are grown men, supposed leaders, who just cannot be more excited to be in the same room, to breathe the same oxygen as Donald Trump, to jump up to standing ovations. And as you say, Joe, many of the people in that room giving him an ovation, getting as close as they can to make sure they're in all the photographs with him for their campaign ads, are the ones who condemned him on January 6th, in the days after January 6th, before they put their fingers in the wind and realized that his supporters still liked him and changed completely. It's not surprising anymore, but to see it up close with him side by side with them and then running to cameras to talk about how excited they were to have been waved at or recognized by him in some way. It is something to behold. And that meeting with Republican senators also, by the way, marked the first time Trump and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell have come face to face since 2020. After the meeting, McConnell told reporters the meeting was, quote, good.
We had a good meeting.
Did he?
Yeah,
did he say anything about you?
Did you talk to him directly? Did you talk to him directly?
Yeah, we shook hands many times. He took questions from the audience, and it was an entirely positive session.
So after seeing that photograph of Mitch McConnell shaking hands with Donald Trump, Liz Cheney posted, I won't read all of it, but you get the gist. Mitch McConnell knows, writes Cheney, Trump provoked the violent attack on our Capitol and then watched television happily as his mob brutally beat police officers and hunted the vice president. He knows Trump refused for hours to tell his mob to leave. And even then, with police officers bleeding, he kept repeating his election lies and praising the criminals. He knows Trump committed a disgraceful dereliction of duty and is a danger to our Republican. Trump and his collaborators will be defeated, and history will remember the shame of people like Leader McConnell, who enabled him. Joe, that is from Liz Cheney after having seen that scene on Capitol Hill yesterday.
It's 100% correct.
Liz Cheney, and she wrote what she wrote there. Mitch McConnell basically said when he was talking about what happened on January the 6th. You talk to people, liberals, conservatives. You talk to people who were there on January 6th. No one was more angered by what happened than Mitch McConnell. And Mitch McConnell talked about it. When he was on the Senate floor, he talked about all of those things that Liz Cheney said right there. And now, again, it's just a collective sort of amnesia and just complete moral vacuum at the core of the Republican Party. And what about Mike Johnson? We gave him sustained applause. It's so painful.
Yeah.
It's just
that
so
was
painful.
like, by the way, exactly what Trump wants to hear. A lot of people were clapping for him. That's like the childish 5-year-old mentality about his audiences and clapping. Very strange and very lame that Mike Johnson would feel the need to do that.
Yeah.
Let's bring in NBC News and MSNBC political analyst, former U.S. Senator and former prosecutor Claire McCaskill. She and Jim Palmieri are co-hosts of the MSNBC podcast, How to Win 2024. Also senior political columnist for Politico, Jonathan Martin.
J. Mart.
I'm just going to leave that there. And staff writer for The New Yorker, Susan Glasser, as well.
So J. Mart, you have traveled around the country.
You look like it.
You have talked to Republicans. You have talked to elected leaders on both sides of the House. You know, like I know, because I've talked to them too, all of those people clapping and all of those people hugging Donald Trump and all of those saluting Donald Trump all hate Donald Trump, all say terrible things behind his back. Yeah. And even that guy right there said, if you're a Christian, J.D. Vance, at one point said, if you're a Christian, you cannot vote for this man. And yet, here we are, J. Mart.
They're living a life that they're not terribly thrilled about, but it's the life that they've chosen because their voters like him. Joe, their voters love him, actually, and they live in fear of their voters. And look, that's the issue, right? There's a fundamental difference between the leadership class of the party and the rank and file voters. They're not the same party. And you've got a residue of an earlier party that's still left, especially in the Senate, that does not reflect where the party's voters are. So they have to fake it, and they've been doing that for going on a decade now. Some of them quit or retire or are defeated, but if those who stick around, they make this accommodation and they do it unhappily, but that's the life that they're living. And boy, guys, I have to say, to have Doug Mills, the prize-winning photographer for the New York Times, come into the NRSC yesterday to shoot that session, to record it for history. Trump knows what he's doing. He's getting the best photographer in journalism today to come record all the supplicants in the Senate kiss his ring yesterday because he wants those pictures for history.
Supplicants and, you know, Claire McCaskill, Willie and I talk about it all the time. And we will just say, because we're men, we talk about how we would respond as men if somebody insulted our wives and called them ugly, and if somebody accused our father of being part of the JFK assassination, or if somebody gave out our phone numbers, like Trump gave out Lindsey Graham's phone numbers and insulted Lindsey as much as he did. We could just go down the list. You know, I mean, Mitch McConnell shook hands with a man who has unleashed a torrent of racist comments about his wife. But he did it. I just got to say, I'm just going to say this. I'm an old guy, so I'll just say the way that we would say it in the past. And Willie and I have talked about it now. As a man, You do any of those things, you cross that line, there is no going back. There, you insult my father, my wife. Like, there's no going back. There's no shaking your hand. There's no endorsing you. In fact, I will focus on destroying your political career for the rest of my life. By the way, people who know me know. When they have insulted close friends who have passed away, I literally spent the next 20 years going after them because, well,
it's wrong.
You just don't let bullies beat up friends and family members.
Yeah, I watched that video, and my former colleagues were going, power, self-respect, power, self-respect. Okay, I'll go with power. I'm not going to go with self-respect. A couple of things stood out to me about his meetings on the Hill yesterday. One, did you see that awkward moment where Joni Ernst was forced to kiss his cheek? Katie Britt rushed him and, of course, was like, oh, I love you, and hugged him and stuff. And then he walks by Joni Ernst and he sticks his cheek out, and Joni kind of goes over there and has to peck it. And by the way, there's a picture of Josh Hawley. I wish somebody would ask Josh Hawley what he was running from that day on January 6th when the cameras caught him running. And why was he running? If he's written a book on masculinity and how you be a man, I don't know what men run from, but usually it's because they're afraid for their lives. So, and then the other thing that was, think about this for a minute, guys. Donald Trump got in front of members of Congress and wanted to talk about whether Taylor Swift was going to endorse him. I mean, that's just weird. I mean, that is a scrambled brain. First of all, they're under no set of circumstances is Taylor Swift ever gonna endorse Donald Trump, ever. And so him bringing it up is such a self-own that he cares more about Taylor Swift endorsing him than any of those losers that he was requiring to applaud him.
That was a strange scene.
It's a strange obsession. That's come up a lot lately. He doesn't understand why Taylor Swift doesn't like him. He thinks that she should come out and endorse him. I think he's obsessed with people who are really, really famous because that's the thing that matters to him. I guess he's stardom, something like that. So, Susan Glasser, we should point out that today is Donald Trump's 78th birthday, and you're writing a piece about his age. Also, those Senate Republicans brought him a cake, brought him out a cake yesterday. I think we have it here. There it is. There's your cake, sir. Mr. President, let me lean in and get my president with you, blowing out the candles at your birthday party. House Republicans saying happy birthday to him as well. A significant day, though. So much is made about Joe Biden's age. The RNC deceptively editing clips while he's overseas to suggest that he's too old to serve. 78, no spring chicken either, though, is it, Susan?
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable moment, I have to say. Donald Trump is making the case, that people try to make against President Biden. It seems to me that he is ought to be the poster boy. I note that they did not have the televised photo op singing happy birthday to Trump because it might underscore the very visible. I mean, even the Trump of 2016 or 2020 was far more coherent. We're only a few days away from his infamous sharks, electric boat, electrocution speech in Las Vegas, truly one of the classics of the genre. Yesterday, in that meeting with House Republicans, according to various reports, he even said that the city where Republicans are going to nominate him for president was a horrible city, Milwaukee. He talked about Taylor Swift. He rambled on about Nancy Pelosi and claiming that, maybe they would have made a good couple. Crazy stuff like this. And I think it's the kind of unspoken, naked man in the room problem with Donald Trump. All those people applauding and cheering him are afraid to talk about the reality of who he is.
J. Mart, I know you're a man who likes Milwaukee. And I know that that's the Republican host convention city, and that Donald Trump just bashed it yesterday. So you can weigh in on whether you think that has any electoral impact there. Certainly waves of negative headlines in a key swing state. But to Susan's point, that was just one of a number of really off-the-wall things that Donald Trump said yesterday. He's now 78 years old as of today. There's been so much concern about that looming debate, now just 2 weeks' time away, about what President Biden will do. Will he deliver a strong, coherent performance? But don't Trump staffers have to be worried about the exact same thing for Donald Trump, who's going to be up there with no audience to cheer him on, no crowd to feed from, and yet might be exposed saying, frankly, a lot of things that just don't make a lot of sense?
Well, that's precisely the Biden calculation, is that they know that they have to show to the country that Biden can stand up there for 90 minutes and prove that he is still fit for office. And that they have to get Trump back into the camera frame, which he's really not been for the last year, and remind the country of why they voted Trump out. So, yeah, that's the dual Biden motivation, John. And the hope, the bet that Biden is making is that, you know, he's going to obviously stand and deliver, and that Trump is going to have a repeat of the performance that he did in the fall of 20 when he had COVID famously on the debate stage and really was sort of a rampaging, you know, for an hour plus. And I think that's the Biden hope. The country sees Donald Trump and says, yeah, you know what? I have some questions about Biden's age and capacity, but boy, I can't bring this guy back to my living room for 4 more years. I just can't do Trump once more. That's certainly the hope and the plan. And given what Trump has been saying lately, he does seem more prone to some colorful explanations. I can't guarantee, Susan, that we're going to have the shark death versus the battery death underwater question, one of the great deliberations of our time, but we can hope. You know?
Well, and Jay Martin brought up Hannibal Lecter again yesterday.
Yes. What's the obsession with that?
Good guy. Again, the rambling just goes on and on. And Trump. And
he's tougher on sharks than Hannibal Lecter. You know, it's really unfortunate.
Well, looks exactly. So how important? Talk about Wisconsin and how important what we're seeing in the polls showing that older voters, especially the upper Midwest, and white voters, older white voters in the upper Midwest who were always considered to be Trump voters, how they have broken toward Biden.
It's one of the most fascinating phenomena, and the students of the Midwest, like Claire McCaskill, will appreciate this. I think especially in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan to some degree, there's a healthy civic culture, and there's a tradition of what politicians and what presidents look like and sound like. And I think there's an expectation of a certain level of dignity, Joe. And if you are somebody who lives in Oshkosh or La Crosse, Wisconsin, and you're 75 years old, and you're a moderate, and you know what Nixon and Ford and Reagan looked and sounded like because you were an adult for their presidency, I just think Trump is pretty darn hard for you to swallow. And I think that's a huge asset for Joe Biden, that he does have older white voters in the Midwest still on his side. He's lost them in other parts of the country.
So, I mean, again, the Milwaukee comments are just another reason why the campaign perhaps would have preferred that he stayed in a courthouse and kept his mouth shut. Susan Glasser will give the final word to you this morning.
Donald Trump doesn't like to stay in a corner and keep his mouth shut, does he, Mika? You know, I think that the more he talks, the more one is reminded that the very best campaigner this year for Joe Biden is very likely to be Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Susan Glasser, thank you so much. We'll be reading her new piece for The New Yorker online now. And